Doing all right. I've been away and I just got an email from Rick Badette requesting to withdraw the Millie's application.
Oh, okay.
So we can get to that when we get to public hearings, but just an FYI.
Thank you.
Okay. Meg, that looks like it's a little bit down the road. Should I make an announcement prior to at the start of the public hearings, just to let everyone know if they're here for that? Or
Yeah, I would. So when you do the motion to continue the others, maybe you can take
Okay.
that as a motion to withdraw without prejudice at that point.
Great. Also, Meg, I can bring this up, but there is an action deadline on 6/12 for the Great Harbor Yacht Club. Our next meeting is on 6/13. So I just wanted to point out that, as well as 48 West Maya Comet Road, that's 6/12 action deadline.
Yep, so we'll get extensions if we need them. Thank you.
Yeah, just in case
Well,
we
we
need them.
definitely will for 48.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
Hey,
Hey,
Carl.
Carl, welcome.
Was there something you had, John? Mr.
Yes.
Chair, was there something you had as an announcement?
I was just looking through some notes and we have a couple of action deadlines that I'll announce that should be extended if necessary. And also the Millie's, and I'll announce when we formally open, will be withdrawn without prejudice. The Heather Creek Millie's.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Well, it's a couple minutes after 4. Let's see, we have Dave, Nat, Barry. We do have a quorum. I see Cam is here, Carl. I don't see Steven. He might join in. And then for staff, Meg, we have Leslie or Andrew with us this evening. Oh, Meg's on the phone. I'm just going to wait until I see that Meg is ready. I know she was on the phone, and being that she's taking notes and monitoring everything, I'll wait until I get confirmation she's ready for this.
Hi, John.
Hi, Cam.
How are you?
Good.
Good. I just wanted to make a quick statement since we're waiting anyway. On the town meeting thing, I felt like part of the whole thing of what I was saying and the rebuttals had to do with whether tertiaries were appropriate or not. And I just wanted to clear up that I did not file anything that was opposed to tertiaries, just in terms of sizes in the already small lot sizes. But I sort of felt like there was a lot of talk about getting rid of tertiaries, and I did not have anything like that in my presentation. So I just want to be clear on that piece.
Yeah, I don't
Thanks.
know, if any discussion came about that, unless you've heard something after town meeting, but I don't think there was an implication that from you that you were looking to eliminate tertiary. I think our conversation was really just about the increase. And I know that one area that you were more particularly interested in not, populating with more buildings and finished space. But no, I don't think it was misrepresented. I think you did a very good job with your suggestion and amendment.
Okay, great. Thanks. I just, it sounded from Mr. Cohen and Mr. Welch like their discussion had to do with the existence of the tertiary. And so I just wanted to clear it up in case anybody thought that I was saying that, because I wasn't. Okay, but thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I wasn't going to say anything, but I think my comments are being misconstrued. I spoke specifically on the size. Town
Right.
meeting spoke on the size. I think the matter's settled.
Yeah, I believe that's what we were just
Mhm,
talking about. I think everybody is now on the same page. It wasn't a question of whether someone was for or against tertiary. It was just a question of the size, of which we had an open discussion. And I think it was a nice discussion, which obviously voters voted, and we are where we are. So I don't think there's any further confusion. I think everybody is on the same page now. All right, Meg, I see you are ready. Is that true? Shake, thumbs up. Great. All right. I am going to start. Welcome to the May 9th, 2022 meeting of the Nantucket Planning Board. We are conducting this meeting via Zoom, webinar, and remote participation pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order regarding open meeting law. Members, as I call your name, please acknowledge your attendance with roll call. Vice Chair Dave Iverson.
Here.
Dave, muted.
No, here. You guys didn't hear me?
Hmm.
Here. No?
I heard you, but John,
I'll have to go back
Am
out.
I frozen or?
yeah, you're
is Dave?
frozen, John. Your camera's frozen.
Oh,
Go,
no.
can't hear me?
Now you seem good.
Hello?
Dave, we
Okay,
can hear
great.
you.
thank you,
Hear
Dave.
you.
I can't hear you,
Meg-
Meg.
Oh, really? You
All right,
can't
I'm
hear
going
me?
out and coming back in.
I can hear Dave. I don't know if it's the wind, the weather we're having. But did you, Meg, just to go back, did you hear my introduction with, great. So again, we'll start roll call. Dave Iverson.
He just signed out and is gonna
Okay.
try signing back
Great.
in.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm following there. Nat Lowell,
Here, aye.
Barry Rector.
Present.
Okay, Cam Sutton,
Present.
Stephen Welch,
Here,
Carl Borchert.
Here.
Okay, and staff, I see our land use planner, Meg Trudell.
Here,
And Meg, if there's somebody else that I can't see, I think you're it.
I'm
John,
it for
can you-
right
can you
now.
hear me as
Everyone
well?
else is gonna be joining in the next 10 minutes or so.
Great. So as they come on, if we need to, we can acknowledge their presence. So I'd like to, yes,
Just making sure you
Yes.
can hear me now. Perfect.
you are here. Thank you and welcome, Dave.
Thank
Don't move. Okay, calling the meeting to order, like an approval of the agenda. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Okay, motion has been made by Barry, seconded by Dave for the agenda roll call. Barry,
Oh, aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. As it looks like we are going to vote on the minutes for February 14th, 2022 and March 14th, 2022. We will continue the April 11, 2022 minutes. Anybody have any discussion or comment about the 2 minutes we're voting on? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made by, I think, Barry
Dave.
and,
Dave.
no, Dave, sorry, and seconded by Nat.
I'll second it.
Uh,
I didn't do it, but go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I'm having a little problem. I apologize. Again, I don't know what it is. I haven't had an issue. So motion has been made by Dave and seconded by Nat for the approval of the minutes. Roll call, Dave,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Great, now on to secondary dwellings. The first one, 10 Lewis Court, has been withdrawn. And it looks like we are only on secondary dwellings for two. 16 Gulfview Drive, Margaret Owen. It's a garage apartment. And also 32 Dukes Road, Kevin and Kelly Purcell. Does anybody have any discussion, or I would entertain a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Barry.
just to get a little clerical thing out of the way at this point, on that secondary dwelling withdrawn, for Vlatko Pesnak, I'm going to make a motion that the board accept the withdrawal without prejudice.
Great. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Motion's been made for withdrawal without prejudice for 10 Lewis Court by Barry, seconded by Dave. Roll call, Barry,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
the chair votes aye. Now on to the two secondary dwellings I had just listed at 16 Gulfview and 32 Dukes Road. Any discussion, or is there a motion?
Make a motion to endorse.
Is there a second?
I'll second for approval.
All
For
right,
staff
motion-
recommendation.
Thank you. Motion's been made by Nat, seconded by Barry, for the two secondary dwellings, 16 Gulfview and 32 Dukes Road. Roll call, Nat,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
and the chair. Is that a ah or a?
That's an aye.
Okay.
Aw.
And the chair votes aye. Unanimous. Now on to A&Rs. Let's see, we have. First, does anybody have any discussion or reason to recuse for any of the A&Rs listed before I continue?
I,
Go ahead, Dave.
I'm not sure, on Lemberg, I don't share a property line, but they're right next door, so I'll probably recuse.
So
that one.
then I would suggest you recuse, and we'll take the other ones first.
Mhm.
So if there's no other further discussion, I'll list A&Rs for 174 Orange Street, Nantucket Islands Land Bank. 2 Milestone Road, Nantucket Islands Land Bank. Fair City LLC, 115 and 117 Old South Road. 1010 Winds LLC, 10 Lincoln Ave. Malcolm James Cranston and Kathleen O'Keefe, Derrymore Road, Paul Jones Road, Delaney Road, and Cliff Road. Franklin Tyler Hardy, 3B Somerset Road. Thomas G. Schwank, 14 Hummock Pond Road. And that is all for now. Is there a motion to endorse?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion-
Second.
I almost said
Motion's
Madam
been
Moderator.
made by Nat to endorse, seconded by Barry. Roll call, Nat,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. Now on to David Lemberg and Patricia Layhiff, 33 South Shore Road, with Dave recusing. Is there discussion or motion?
Motion to endorse.
Second.
Motion to endorse by Barry, seconded by Nat. Roll call, Barry,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. 3-0 in favor, David recusing. On to previous plans. Ellen's Way, a proposed pedestrian easement, and town of Nantucket and conservation restriction discussion. Anybody want to start? Meg?
I'm gonna bring over Sarah Alger, who
Mhm.
represents the applicant, and Emily Molden, who is involved with the conservation restriction for the land
Mhm.
council.
Great. Welcome, Sarah. Welcome, Emily.
Hey, thanks for having me over.
Go ahead, Sarah, whenever you're ready.
So this matter has been
And by the
pending.
way, thank you. I just wanted to thank you for your service and doing a great job as moderator for our recently finished town meeting. Thank you.
Thanks.
Sorry, go ahead.
Here, here.
Already well in the rearview mirror, but glad to have it done.
On to next year.
So on to next year. So this matter has been hanging for quite a while, and we're down to the last lot. And, you may recall originally we were having a really hard time getting someone to hold a CR.
Mhm.
Now, the land council has agreed to hold the CR. It's been drafted. You all have reviewed it and approved it. We've sent it up to the state. And as luck would have it, the person at the state who reviews CRs has moved to another job, I think, somehow. Something happened, he moved to another job. And so there's currently no one reviewing conservation restrictions, although there is some promise that the state is going to hire a subcontractor to deal with them. But nothing's happened. Our CR has been sitting up there, I think, since December. We had a sale of this particular lot that we needed to complete the CR for. That fell apart. So it's been a bit of a disaster in terms of the conservation restriction. And on that piece, we would like to propose an escrow, because it's all agreed and done. It's just a matter of getting it approved it has to be first approved by the state.
Mhm.
Then it comes back to Nantucket. It goes to the select board for its approval. Once they approve and sign, the land council will have signed, the owner will have signed. We then send it back to the state. The state signs, and then it comes back and it's recorded. But because it's been dragging on for such a long time, on that piece, we would like to do an escrow.
Mhm.
The other pieces that are pending, one is an easement to the town over the open space. I put together a draft easement for you to review. If it's acceptable, I would then take it to the select board for their approval. In the meantime, the planning director has been talking to the land bank. The land bank went, I think, from being not really interested in this property back to being interested. They own the property, I'm going to say immediately to the south. It's the direct abutting property. And so it would make sense for us to grant the easement not only to the town, but also to the land bank.
Mhm.
Yeah, there you are. So they're not to the south. I'm sorry, exact opposite direction. They're to the north. And so the idea would be to grant this pedestrian walking path easement to both the select board and the land bank.
Mhm.
We're prepared to do that pretty much immediately. It's basically drafted. I would just have to add the land bank onto it. I would take it to both the land bank and the select board. I'm sure their respective council will have comments and possible changes to the easement, but we'll work that out. I don't think it will be anything significant. And deal with that. And then we have a small amount of remaining work to do, primarily paving, a small amount of seeding. There was a memo from Ed Pesci, and we would like to post an escrow for that as well and get our final Form J.
So Sarah, if I may?
Yeah.
So we have a couple of escrows being considered. So what's the determining factors as to the amount? How do we determine how much escrow will be there? And for the two escrows, the pavement and also the
Right.
easement.
So the pavement and the invasive work, we have proposals for those, and I think I don't know what your board normally does in the, say, private sector. We do 120% of the estimates.
Yeah.
And then you hold the money, and when the work is done, once the work is complete, the money is released. I'd like to have it so that when the invasive work was done, that portion would be released. When the paving was done, that portion would be released. It's a little harder on the conservation restriction because we don't have anything to base the number on. I'd like to propose 150,000. It seems like a significant sum that would keep people engaged. I know Andrew had suggested something slightly larger than that, but
Meg, I see that your hand was raised. Did you have anything to add maybe from Andrew's discussion?
Yeah, so two things. With the last conversations I had with Mr. Pesci, I know there was a final paving estimate from Victor, maybe from 2020, 2019.
we can get that
Pre-COVID. Yeah,
updated.
so get that updated.
Yeah.
And then some additional work to be done would be things like cleaning out catch basins. There's some land that needs to be cleared to create an emergency access from Zachary Way. So things of that nature. So what the board has typically done in the past is to get written estimates and charge 120%, like Sarah suggested, of the total of those estimates. And that money is eligible for release on kind of back to the applicant. We don't pay the invoices on their behalf, but we can release it back to the applicant upon completion. Separately, I know the figure that Sarah had discussed with staff, and I've been away, was 275,000 for the land. Was that the figure you discussed with Andrew, Sarah?
Yeah, that I think.
Or was that for everything?
No, that was, I think that was intended to be just for the conservation restriction.
Okay.
My client thought that seemed high, but if that's what it takes, I mean, I'd like to leave. We've already lost a sale. So, I mean, at this point, I'd like to leave here knowing that if I put X amount of money into an escrow account, I can get a Form J and we can kind of move on. So if it has to be 275.
Okay. If I may,
Sure.
Sarah, I'd like to hear from Emily if she has any comments.
Sure.
Great. Hi, Emily, if you're there, welcome.
Hi there. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Sorry for not having a camera on this computer, but thanks for inviting me over. I think that Sarah painted the picture pretty appropriately. The state has other staff that are trying to fill in on the CR reviewing, and it has just been moving at a snail's pace for all land trusts across Massachusetts right now. As she said, they are looking at hiring a contractor shortly to help assist with that. So hopefully we'll get some more forward momentum. I certainly don't have a problem with the escrow in order to allow the owner to proceed at the moment, because we're so far along in the process with the draft already up there at the state. We've done so much background work on this already. I think the only additional thoughts I would have, I know the invasive species management plan, which I think would serve the purpose of satisfying the special permit condition for the open space management plan. That is maybe a year old, so it might be possible to just get a quick update on that estimate as well. And another one of the special permit conditions that dealt with ensuring that the open space boundaries were marked with split rail fencing or privet hedge. We've been working with the property owner on that over the past year, and I believe that all encroachments have already been addressed. So I think that that's in good shape. And then I think, as Sarah mentioned, just the restoration and additional legal fees. So I don't have a lot to add. Just wanted to make sure that there were funds set aside for that invasive species management work, and just to see the restriction through to completion.
Great, thank you. Board, any comment, concerns? Dave?
Yeah, I just want to make sure I have this straight in my head. So there's going to be two different escrows, one for the work and then one to replace the Form J.
Well, they're all for the Form J. It's one's for the work and one is for the
I'm sorry,
CR.
Yeah, for the CR. Okay, perfect. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with the notes that Emily had mentioned with the invasive species management plan update, the boundaries for the being split rail or hedges, and obviously with the two escrows that we have, one being the $275,000.
Right.
Okay, and we're waiting for the second estimate for the paving for an update from the 2019-2020 estimate. But I assume that with that, we have a baseline to go on, and then you can work with staff with the update on that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Board, if you're satisfied, still take discussion or a motion.
I
Go ahead, Dave.
I guess, how's the board feel about 275?
Well,
I think
my position would be that was mentioned in to staff, to the director, although it's not an ideal number that Sarah and her client's looking for. I don't think, just hearing from Sarah, there's an objection if we can get this passed through today. So I think I feel comfortable with the 275.
perfect.
Okay. Is there a motion out there?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Barry.
if I may, through you to Megan.
Sure.
So Megan, when it comes to having to do escrow for like the little bits of road work and basin cleaning and all that stuff, we can accept escrow, no problem, but don't we kind of have to have a figure before the board before we close this, I thought?
No,
Might be
I don't.
mistaken.
I think we can work that if it's okay with you guys. I think that we can handle that between the applicant and staff. I think Ed has done a good job of identifying what needs to happen. So as long as we can, make the written estimates, compile that all together, and the ultimate check is reflective of those estimates, I think that is completely fine.
All right, yeah, so just, okay, back, so Mr. Chairman, just as long as when we craft that we mentioned that the escrow for that level of work should be 120% of whatever the final calculated figure is from staff.
The updated estimates.
Right.
Very well.
Right.
Okay, on that, Barry, addressing the other concerns, boundaries, the invasive species management plan update, the proposed estimate or the proposed escrow for the 275,000 for the conservation restriction, and also the proposed estimate for the pavement that will be updated from the 2019-2020 estimates through staff at 120%. Is there a motion for the Form J release? Okay, Sarah, go ahead.
I just wanted to make sure you were okay with the easement running to both the land bank and the town.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry. With addition
Okay.
to that, I didn't see an objection from Emily.
Okay.
All right, so John, you phrased that eloquently, and that will be my motion, sir.
Great. Is there a second?
I'll
Second.
I think in the
Dave.
Dave,
Uh,
if it was the conductor derby, I would have given that to Nat, but I'll let Dave have that. So
Oh.
this has been made by Barry, seconded by Dave. Roll call. Barry,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you
Sarah.
very much.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you all.
Okay, now on to public hearings. I believe we have a few to be continued. So let me just list them. Continued to the June 13th meeting, 27 Fair Street LLC, 27 and 29 Fair Street. Also AC Mid-Island LLC and AC offices, 18, 18A, 20, 22, 24, and 26 Sparks Ave. That is also to the June 13th meeting. Catherine Dean Schulman, trustee, 48 West Comet Road. That is continued to the June 13th meeting, 2022. William Tornavish and Deborah Tornavish, trustee, 21 Allens. That is continued to the June 13 meeting. And also we have Millie's or Heather Creek LLC, Millie's 324 and 326 Nantucket Road. That is being continued to the June 13th. And I'm looking at action deadlines. I believe everyone is fairly safe except for 48 West Comet. I see the action deadline is 6/12. So that falls a day before our next meeting of the 13th. So with the continue without prejudice, I would also add the action deadline being updated on that, Meg? Would that be to the, what would you consider for the action deadline to be extended?
Well, for West Comet, that needs to be extended to at least September.
Okay.
For Great Harbor Yacht Club, I think maybe Stephen and I can work.
Well,
that
that's
out.
not up for discussion yet. That's
Oh,
not being
sorry.
continued. So
You said that.
no, that's for future, when we start to discuss the meeting. That doesn't have a continued. I was just looking at the ones being continued, being the West Comet. That action deadline is 6/12 that I have listed here.
Yep, so we'll get an action deadline extension from the applicant on that one.
Great. Okay, with the ones that I mentioned for continued to June 13, I would accept a motion to continue without prejudice.
So moved.
Dave made the motion. Nat, second. Roll call. Dave,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. Now on to our first public hearing with Great Harbor Yacht Club modification number 12, 56 Union. And this, Meg, we would need an action deadline extension because that is listed as June 12th. So is there anyone here for the applicant that would like to speak?
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, Stephen
Cohen.
Cohen for the applicant.
Hi, Stephen, welcome.
Thank you. So do you want me to request an extension now?
Sure, we might as well get out of the way before we, or I forget.
Sure. Megan, do you want to give me a date and I'll request that?
I think if you want to just make it where we can talk about it after the meeting, because I think it's going to be dependent on if you come to a decision today or not,
Okay, that's fine.
if that
Thank you.
works.
Great.
Okay. So just to remind the board, this application is to add the former 56 Union Restaurant to the MCD special permit that exists for Great Harbor Yacht Club, which has about a dozen amendments to it since it was first put into place. The Great Harbor Yacht Club acquired that restaurant and intends to use it as ancillary space for its members. It does not intend to run it as a restaurant and would see that space as having sort of flex use. So for example, there might be some foosball tables or a pool table or a coffee station, those kind of things to relax. Might also have some remote workstations and potentially event space to have meetings. Not like big events, but to have small like board meetings or whatever. And then also would maintain the dining facility that's in there and the alcohol facility that's in there to keep those licenses in place, but would not operate as a restaurant. The Great Harbor Yacht Club has a dining room that would be its main dining room. So we anticipate that the use would be significantly less than what had previously been when this was a very large and well-attended restaurant. We also anticipate that there would be less usage because the traffic would come in from the rear instead of from Union Street. and the front door of the restaurant would be closed and access would be from the side entrances. And again, only by members or staff. So you would have a significant reduction of the impact on the Union Street in and out, both pedestrian and vehicular. There's no physical changes that are planned. You know, it might get cleaned up a little bit, but there's no request to do any material changes. There's some office space that would be maintained. There's some employee housing that would be maintained as employee housing of the club. There is, an apartment there now that would be restricted to employee housing, not rented out or used by members or anything like that. The hours of operation are proposed as 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. or 12 a.m. Sorry, which is consistent with the existing hours for the rest of the facility, just so it's all the same. There's a existing dorm policy that was in place for the former Tuckernuck Inn. And then the Great Harbor Yacht Club actually has a better, more current version of that policy that was used and put in place when they bought a house on Evergreen. And so we're proposing to use that more contemporary version of the dorm policy, which has all the features that staff would currently be looking for. And I believe that's been proposed to and reviewed by staff. So there's no changes to the lighting that are planned. There's no changes to the physical structure that are planned. The triangle that's in the middle of the road that's parking that belongs to this site would continue to be used, although the proposal would be that it would be used only in two circumstances, either as employee parking or in the event that there's an event there and it needed to be overflow parking for the event, it could be used for that purpose. And I believe that the staff has proposed a condition for staff only, so I would request that it be for staff or for overflow parking. But basically the idea is we don't want random people or members, using it. It should be consistently the same, employees or whatever, to just limit any kind of situation. Parking, just to update you, we have a plan that was submitted by Leo from Blackwell's office that shows all the details. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I will tell you that we're proposing 104 parking spaces, with 3 of those being ADA compliant, with then 6 overflow parking spaces, which are in the grassy area on Salt Marsh, which are existing overflow parking. There previously was 16 valet spaces, but since the cottage has been demolished, we now have a little bit more, at least 24 valet spaces there. If they're talented, they might get more, but we think it's at least 24 spaces. And then the 7 offsite spaces at the triangle. So you've got quite a bit of parking there. We've reviewed the staff report and the condition proposed by staff, and we're entirely comfortable with them as is, but I would ask for the consideration of 2 minor changes. One, that the triangle for parking be both for staff and for overflow. And then also there's a condition that says that there won't be any changes to the lighting. And if the board would consider it, I would say that changes to lighting that are consistent with the dark skies bylaw might be approvable through staff, but any substantial changes would have to come to the board. And if the board was okay with that, then that's fine. And if the board is not, what's existing is also fine. I'm just really proposing it as a clarification. So I think that's where we are. Stephen Crease, who's the general manager and CEO of the Great Harbor Yacht Club, is also here if you have any questions for him. But if you don't, be happy to move along. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. And Meg, I believe special permit, we have 4. We can activate an alternate. Is that correct?
Yes, but I believe on this one, it was opened at the March meeting, and I don't think you were there, were you, Carl, for that one? So it would have to be either Campbell or Stephen.
Now, given that, did we have anyone for that March meeting? Or did we have a full board back then where we didn't have an alternate sitting in yet?
So Fritz was still on the board at that time, but Campbell and Stephen Welch were both present. So either of them would be eligible to be activated for this. So there would be no additional requirement for them to file Mullen paperwork since they were present at that meeting.
Great. All right. Well, I am going to activate Cam for this first one. Cam, are you there?
I am right here.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Now, as far as board hearing from Stephen, this does, all the conditions of the original special permit are in place. It sounds like Stephen's looking at the conditions that we had, that he had mentioned, that we have listed, looking to alter two conditions as far as the triangular parking area. To, instead of just reserved for staff parking, he wanted to put it for staff and overflow. So we can discuss that, but also for the existing lighting, he just said, in general, any changes to lighting would be consistent with dark skies policy. So with that, anybody have any comments, discussion, or questions for Stephen? Before I open it up, Cam, your hand's raised.
Yeah, I just have a couple, excuse me, a couple of questions. Well, one question and one comment. The comment is, I really appreciate the inclusion of the dark sky compliance for, I believe it's condition number 3. So I appreciate the addition of that, if that is all right with the rest of the members. The other question I have is, so this has to do with the triangular parking. I guess I have a little question or concern about sight lines. I know 56 Union used it, but I believe that was usually of an evening. And I'm just wondering if this is available to staff under these same hours of, I believe, was mentioned 8 to midnight.
Yeah, Campbell, it's 9 to midnight, but yeah, the idea would be that it would be for staff parking.
Okay, so I'm just, that's really my only question, because coming down Dover there, I believe it's Dover, right? And you go to take a right and a left. And as you know, we are starting to have, and I do appreciate not having the in and out driveway use where 56 Union had it on their land. It just seems to be becoming a very busy intersection, and you start to see people darting out, and I just want to make sure that there would be continue to be a clear line of sight. Do you see what I mean? For safety's sake.
Yeah, Campbell, if it's okay with you, Mr. Chairman, I'll address that. I think that, I've come down Dover Street quite a bit there, and I think that if you're making a right or left, that those cars would not interfere with your line of sight. And in fact, I think it actually, they somewhat help with traffic, because the obstruction in the road forces people to slow down and be a little more careful. It's the open, extra wide road that lets people zip by when there's nothing there. So, the irony is that making it a little complicated forces people to be a little more careful. I would think that having those cars there would slow people down just a little bit. So hopefully that's what we'll see.
If I may, while we're talking about the triangle parking there, would it be ever a consideration for maybe Great Harbor? I know it's an ownership issue and they have that, but maybe donating that back to the town, maybe for a waiver of the parking spaces that are there. I know parking is a premium, and we don't like to give away or take away any kind of parking that would help, especially the size of that. But looking forward to traffic and cars parked there, as Cam mentioned, line of sight. If that was donated to the town, maybe something could be done as far as low-lying vegetation. That might be a nice way to break up that space without ever having to worry about cars blocking the site, make it a little more pleasing to the eye and safe. I'm not asking for a decision or anything now. I'm just mentioning it as a consideration for future. Maybe that is something that the members of Great Harbor would consider, even if that from planning staff is even a possible idea or something of interest.
Sure, Mr. Chairman, if I could respond to that. I think it's actually a good idea, although I certainly don't want to commit my clients to it, but I think it's the kind of thing that Ken Berbrand, the town's real estate specialist, could raise with my clients, and we could talk about whether or not there's something that makes sense. Great Harbor Yacht Club is blessed to have, as I stated, nearly 150 parking spaces, if my quick math works. So it's possible that we could enter into a discussion with the town about something like that. But I think, as you were alluding to, that it's not really a planning board issue. It's more of a town issue, and we could talk to Mr. Beaugrand about that. But I think that from a planning board issue, the point I want to make is essentially that we're taking a restaurant that had a very large amount of waived parking based on its pre-existing non-conforming condition and access that was, relatively difficult and unsafe into a high traffic area. And, adding that to a facility that has a substantial amount of parking and doesn't intend to use it in the same way and intends to access it in a different way. So I think what we'll see is a better use of that space in a safer way. But your point about seeing whether or not there's a potential community benefit here, I think, is something that my client would be willing to engage with the town on. Sure.
Great. Thank you very much for that consideration. And also, I did want to point out that the management plan would be, asked and enforced in this particular sense, and the updated management plan that they have with the other property that they have. Cam, your hand is raised.
Oh.
No?
Yes, I'm sorry. I
No worries.
appreciate your responses. I guess my only other question was whether the parking is assigned parking. I was a little confused about the employee. Do you have anything for that, Stephen, in terms of whether it's assigned parking or?
I'm sorry, Mr.
You
Chairman,
will not-
is Campbell talking about the triangle or in general?
Yeah, we're talking about the triangle right now, yes.
Yeah.
I think that employees will operate at the direction of the general manager. I don't know that we're going to have any assignments, but I'm sure that the people who would be put there will be at the direction of the general manager.
Great. Board, before I open this up, any other comments, questions for Stephen? Seeing or hearing none, I'd like to open it up to the general public. Meg, if you would be so kind to let me know if somebody is raising a hand.
Not seeing anyone at the moment, no.
Okay, back to the pleasure of the board.
Motion to close the public hearing then, sir.
Okay, so
Second.
motion's been made by Barry to close the public hearing, seconded by Nat. Roll call, Barry,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Cam, Campbell,
She's muted.
Sorry, I muted myself.
There you go.
Aye.
okay, and the chair votes aye. Now on to the merits. Board,
Yeah. Who wants to make that motion?
Oh,
you'll also be looking for the finding that it would be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the bylaw.
So would I be making a motion as written in the staff report with the two additions of the to condition number 3, the dark sky compliance alterations through staff, otherwise through the regular permitting process. And I believe there was the addition of for number 4 was the addition of overflow event parking.
Correct. So
Would that,
your motion is for the one finding about the harmony.
a general purpose, yeah.
Yes. And then the 6 conditions through staff with your 2 amendments, dark skies and overflow. Is that correct?
Correct.
Great. Is
Correct.
there a second?
I'll second.
That was Nat overheard. So motion's been made by Cam, seconded by Nat. Roll call, please. Cam,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. Thank you very much, Stephen.
Thank you, everyone.
Great. On to
Thank you
the
very
next.
much. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, before we moved on to the next one, can we just clarify the vote on Millie's? I think it was inadvertently lumped in as a continuation to the June meeting. That should
Yeah.
actually be withdrawn without prejudice. Just the
Okay.
Millie's application. I know you mentioned it at the end, or
Yeah.
excuse me, at the beginning, but I think it got lumped in with the continuation vote.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Barry.
Yeah, so my motion with Millie's would be for the board to accept the withdrawal without prejudice. That's my motion, sir.
Second.
Motion's been made for Millie's for withdrawal without prejudice from Barry and seconded by Dave. Roll call, Barry,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Great. And on to the next, I believe we're at Donald E. Dimick, 58 Bartlett Road. Is there, I believe Don Bracken, is he here for the applicant?
Yes.
I am. Thank
I'm
you.
over.
Hi, Don, welcome. Go ahead anytime you're ready.
Okay, representing Mr. Dimick in this case. Thank you very much. This is the existing property on Bartlett Road. It's just shy of 13,000 square feet in the R5 district. There's enough frontage on the property to be able to create two A&R lots. We're proposing special permit under the back lot provision with 20 feet of frontage. If you look at the plan, there will be a new lot created behind where the existing house is at 7,395 square feet. That new lot will get access to Bartlett Farm Road via an easement on the abutting lot at 56 Bartlett Road. The plan we submitted showed a proposed driveway easement, but in actuality, there's an existing driveway easement already there. So with this new lot, we're not proposing any additional curb cuts or driveway access points. And I think that's it. Pretty simple, I guess.
Okay, board? Questions, comments for Don before I open it up? So this is a special permit, Meg. I'll activate Stephen Welch. Stephen?
Yep.
Great. You're activated on this, Stephen. So if you have any questions for Don, please feel free.
Nope, none.
Okay.
Um,
Go ahead, Cam. I hear your
John,
name.
I just have a question because of course everyone's aware of my concern over additional curb cuts. And I think what I just
I think they're using the same one.
things, and I think I just heard, because it's a little confusing on the plan that was submitted, but I believe Mr. Bracken just said there would be no additional curb cuts across the bike path, that existing easement would continue to be the access points.
I think that we are all thinking that is what Don said. So I'll just have Don confirm. We are using the existing curb cut, not an additional one, correct, Don?
Yeah, that's correct. But I'm not sure if 58 would want the ability to add, it's a separate curb cut later on further to the south. Specifically this new lot that is created will be using that curb cut. And if you wanted to condition it that way, obviously,
Yeah.
that's
So
fine.
in the future, if there were to be a request for an additional curb cut, they would have to come to us for approval.
Yes,
Great.
yeah, exactly. Yep.
And just one more question, would it be possible for lot 1 to utilize the easement that lot 2 is using? in future?
It is currently already. So both lots will be utilizing that easement.
Okay,
Yeah, there's no curb cut actually on this lot right now. It's not intended to put one on.
great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I will open it up to the general public. So Meg, please let me know if there's any questions or hands being raised.
Not seeing anyone.
Okay, not seeing any. I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
So moved.
Okay, don't all yell at once.
Mr. Rector, Barry,
Okay, Barry got the nods for, is there, and who was the second, Catherine, if you want?
I'll
second it.
Stephen, okay. Motion's been made to close the public hearing by Barry, seconded by Stephen. Roll call. Barry,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. Now on to the merits. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve, subject to staff recommendations.
Okay,
Second.
and the findings consider with those conditions.
Yep.
Okay, the motion's been made by Stephen, seconded by Barry. Roll call. Stephen,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Thank you very much, Don.
Thank you.
Okay, now on to Joseph Denellen and Christine Denellen, modification number 3, 37 West Maya Comet Road. Is there, oh, I think that is
That's
still Don Bracken.
This is
Correct,
hold
thank
on, I'm
you.
just trying to bring Christine over because she is
Sure.
in the audience as well.
Great. So Don, whenever you're ready,
okay.
go ahead.
Thank you. Well, this property already has a special permit under the Moorlands Management District. We had to modify that special permit. If you look at the site plan, there's an existing shed to be relocated and the driveway reconfigured. There'll actually be slightly less driveway overall after the reconfiguration and those other areas get vegetated. We're staying within the existing disturbed areas. This property was subject to MISA requirements and we're restricted to the clearing that we have. The proposed work does not require going back to MISA for anything. It's exempt work working within the existing footprint. The other aspect of this project is putting on a second floor additional space on the southern corner of the proposed house, sort of fitting in within the same building envelope area of the existing house with no increase in height. And so there'll be no increase in height, no increase in ground cover. And again, everything falls within the existing limits of disturbed areas. And that's pretty much it. Be happy to answer questions.
Great. Thank you. And special permit. So I think we're going to activate Carl. Are you there, Carl?
Yes.
Great.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Any questions, comments from the board before we open it up? Seeing none for now, I'd like to open it up to the general public. Meg, let us know if you see any logging on or hand raised. Thank you.
Seeing none.
Motion to close the public hearing then, sir.
Okay.
Second.
Motion been made by Barry, seconded by Nat to close the public hearing. Roll call. Barry,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
aye. Okay. Carl,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. So I just have a quick question. Any temporarily disturbed areas in one of the conditions will be restored as close as reasonable practical. Not any ground cover going on second floor. Don, do you anticipate a lot of disturbance?
No, not really. If you look at where the new driveway is going to be located, it like 90% of it falls, or even more than that, falls within the existing driveway location. So any disturbance is really going to be removal of the driveway and planting of new vegetation, whether it be grass or whatever. So.
Thank you. Board, what is your pleasure?
Yeah,
I mean, this is one of the easier MMD applications. There's really not a lot going on here. So hence the no one's questioning anything. So I would make a motion to approve the changes with these conditions, and that the relocation of the shed and reconfigured driveway has been sited away from known and suspected habitats of endangered plant and animal species, both on and off site, and minimizes the adverse effects on the Mullins environment and scenic integrity. That would be my motion, Mr. Chairman.
With the 4 conditions, I'm guessing.
With the 4, yeah, I said that before that, yes. And I think that number 3 is kind of like part of all of them, I think, so. So yes, with those 4 conditions of the finding.
Motion's been made by Nat. Is there a second?
I'll second that. And I'd like to just make a quick comment that I truly appreciate this applicant coming forward and not trying to push the envelope. I think that we don't see that very often, and just wanted to say that we appreciate it.
Right. Motion's been made by Nat, seconded by Dave. Roll call. Nat?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Barry?
Aye.
Carl?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you very much again, Don.
Thank you.
Okay. Now on to, I believe, Kitty Murtaugh's Road LLC, 4 West Creek Road. For the applicant, Linda Williams, is she here?
Yes, she is. I'm bringing her over right now. John's here as well, so I'll try and bring him over.
Welcome, Linda. Welcome, John. And whoever would like to start, Linda?
It's can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. It's fairly simple. During the pandemic for the last 2 years, the town has allowed a lot of places, whether it's street or sidewalk or on your own property, to operate outside. He has operated outside. He hasn't increased his occupancy because he doesn't use the basement when he uses the patio area to the left of the front door. And he's been doing it without incident. There's been no phone calls, no noise complaints, no nothing. And what he'd like to do now is continue to use it permanently.
So Linda, if I may, for the purpose of identifying what is proposed and clarification to the general public, you're looking to add the exterior picnic tables while not increasing capacity. So at the point of which you're serving people on the exterior, the basement would be closed. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm not sure you can still hear me because I'm coming in and out of Zoom here.
You're loud and clear. No worries.
Okay. Yeah, just obviously we'll move them around a little bit, but that's pretty much the way they want to do it. They have an occupancy, don't have it in front of me, but they have a fairly sizable occupancy and they are not using the basement. So the seats that are in the basement are outside.
So may I ask, Linda?
In the summer, when they're using the outside, they're not using the basement. In the winter, they're not using the outside, they're using the basement. So long as we don't increase our occupancy. Fine.
So I guess my question would be for enforcement, what is being proposed? So when the outside seating is being utilized, will there be, a gate or a sign blocking off the basement saying not in use? If people are going to ask, so I'm just asking for them. What is the procedure to have one or the other?
The basement, you're not allowed in the basement, first off, except for the bathrooms.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a hostess that actually seats you. You can't walk into Kitty's and sit wherever the hell you want.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be seated downstairs. And so if no one is allowed to be seated downstairs, they go down to the bathroom and then come back up.
Okay, board, let's see, let's say special permit. So I think we're going around, and is this Cam? I believe this is your turn in the wheel. So Cam, if you're there, just identify.
I'm right here.
Wonderful. You are
Thank
seating. You're being seated. Great. So opening up to the board, any questions for Linda or John?
I have a quick question.
Go ahead, Cam.
So just in reading the map that was provided with the application, in front of parking spaces, sort of 11, 12, and 13, I'm seeing, is it a two-top or something? Maybe between a ramp, which I think is probably handicap accessible ramp for access into Kitties. I guess I'm a little concerned about how tight that area is. There's nothing to indicate the distance between where the ramp comes out and where the curb begins, but in my recollection, it's not very large, and I'm a little concerned that, well, I guess it doesn't really say where service is coming from. There's staff entrance in the back, so maybe staff isn't trying to serve at the same time people are trying to come in, and it just seems a little tight there, I guess, is my question.
Okay. Would that be, I know, Linda, you used to be on the ADA board or some committee. Would that be something that would be regulated through the local health or state as far as ADA compliance to make sure there's proper spacing between the handicapped accessible parking space and access to the ramp?
Yeah, as I said earlier, the site plan that we've given you is just sort of a representation of how many seats. Those first two are pushed back. There's plenty of room back there. We've done it all for the last 2 summers. They're nowhere near the entrance to the ramp, because I went over there with John and we looked at this where it's going to be settled. It's all, the seats are actually to the left of the ramp. The ramp is fully accessible from that handicap space right in front of it. And they're all sort of pushed back a little bit further. We just put little squares on there so you could see how many tops there were. So I wouldn't get wedded to the actual site plan. They're pushed back further. And there's plenty of room back there for them to be pushed back further. And it's surrounded by, as you can see from the pictures I put in, surrounded by very high hedges and a fence. So
Correct.
it's got
was,
more than.
Excuse me, Linda, I'm
Go ahead,
sorry.
Cam.
I was speaking more to the two small tables in.
And they're not going to be there, Campbell. I said that earlier. Everything's pushed back further.
Okay,
It's just that we
great.
put the.
Oh, the two in the front by the dumpster area?
Yeah, they're
Okay.
pushed back. They're not there. They're pushed back further. We just wanted you to see the blocks. They're not actually physically there. They're pushed back away from the parking lot.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Just so long as people can move safely, that's the key there, isn't it?
I'm sure
Well,
the
I'm
health
not about to let
department.
anybody get in the way of the handicap ramp. I was on the Commission on Disability for 28 years. That's not going to happen.
Okay. Anybody else from the board before I open it up to the general public?
Yeah, I'll comment, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Sure, certainly, Stephen, go ahead.
Sure, the landing at the base of the ramp needs to be the width of the ramp, which it clearly is, so I think you're fine. I have spent a lot of time at Kitties. Clearly no financial interest in this, but the layout seems very appropriate, and those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, seeing no other hands at this point, I'm going to open up to the general public. Meg, let me know if you see any comments or hands raised.
I don't see anyone.
Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion from the board to close the public hearing.
So move, sir.
Motion's been made by Barry. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Nat. Roll call, Barry,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Cam,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Now on to the merits. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the first, the request, the two conditions, and that the proposal is in harmony with the general purpose intent of the bylaw.
Mr.
Second.
Chairman, before you get a second on that.
Go ahead, Linda.
There was one more thing that I wanted to make sure that you guys were understood. We wanted to be able to take them out, put them in the basement, take the basement, put them out there without having to come back here every time we switch them in and out. So I just
Yeah.
want to make sure that's in the decision.
Okay, we'll make a note of that. It was understood and discussed. No two shall operate at the same time. One could be operating while the other shut down and vice versa for the winter that you had mentioned.
Great,
And
thank you.
and Meg, if we could, we can use that as condition number 3, that neither the outside or will be operated at the same time as the basement or vice versa.
Yeah, I'd like the reflection on the basement. That would be good.
Okay, so we'll
Megan.
add that
Agreed.
as condition number 3. So, so with that, I think that remind me again, who made the motion and who was seconding it? Was that Nat and Barry, or Barry, Nat?
Nat made the motion, I
made the
seconded.
motion.
Okay,
Yeah.
Nat made the motion, Barry seconded it. Roll call again. Nat,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Cam,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Thank you very much,
Everybody,
Linda.
I'll be
Thank you,
back in
John.
a few.
Okay.
Mhm.
Moving on, we're looking at NIR Retail LLC, Lola 41, 15 Beach Street. Here, I think that Brian Swain or Rick Bodett, are either of them here for the applicant?
Brian is.
Welcome,
Paul Santo-
Brian.
Is Paul Santos on this too? He has his hand raised. Bring him over.
Hi, Brian Swain.
Hi, Brian. Welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Great.
If you bear with me, I just unmuted myself.
Hey, Brian, is Paul Santos on this one?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
Well, I can begin. And if Paul has any comments, I'm happy to field questions from him. This is a lot similar to what Linda just did. Lola 41 operates at 15 South Beach Street. And that property has a special permit that was issued in 2018 that allowed the restaurant to serve 89 total seats, of which 65 were interior and 24 are exterior seats. And during the past 2 years, the governor's executive orders allowed all restaurants to have additional outdoor seating. And during that time, Lola 41 moved some of its interior seats to the exterior of the building, and it covered them with a tent. That proved to be a big benefit, and its staff, bless you, Barry.
Thank you.
The health, safety, and welfare of the staff and the general public. What we're here to do is to regularize what they've been doing for the past 2 years and allow them the flexibility to move some of their interior seats to the exterior and to cover them with a tent.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Board members, questions, comments before I open it up?
We have read the staff report and we're happy and amenable to be subject to all the conditions provided for in it.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I just make a couple comments about this before we start?
Sure, go ahead, Nat.
This particular, I mean, how do I say this? You know, this is a sort of, you could put this before COVID, okay? Like, in other words, back when Barry remembers this, when restaurants were coming in for outside dining with, you know, with the for off season. And it was really to kind of extend the season beyond, you know, warm weather, stroll, you know, fall, whatever, October. And now we have a sort of a reset of different things from different places. This particular one does not remove any of their interior parking, which is one of the unusual places that actually has some parking, just because of the way it was built. And this doesn't take away anything. This actually looks like it was already there. So, you know, I think that this is a good move on their part. You know, as long as it doesn't change anything as far as the occupancy goes. It's sort of a switch in how they do business based on what happened with COVID. but it does not remove any of the exterior assets that that property provides, you know, whether it's parking, whether it's loading, whether it's access. So I just wanted you all to know that. Thank you.
Thank you, Nat. Anyone else from the board with a comment before I open it up?
John, I just have a quick
Go ahead,
comment or
Pam.
a quick comment or question or something, and it's not in opposition to this. It just, as we know, I think most of us know, there's 4 or 5 or more restaurants that are not going to be open this summer, and so I guess I'm a little surprised at some of these that we're not asking for the additional occupancy, and I'm just a little bit curious about about that, and if anyone has any thoughts on.
Well, my thought would be if there was added space for additional occupancy, or additions or interior renovations or something like that. But if you're restricted to a certain area, and then you might not be looking for additional occupancy. You just might be looking for adhering to any kind of health and fire codes for bathrooms and for,
Rentals.
Right. So for
Yeah,
parking, so I mean, if I owned a restaurant and I had the increased capacity available to me and I had the staff to provide for it, I might be looking for that. So I think there's a variety of reasons, but right now they might be just looking for what they have.
Okay,
So-
super, because I think what you have just said has answered many of my internal thinking processes. And I guess my only other comment is with the number of tents that we're going to be potentially approving over time here, I'm just the ones that are in more of a permanent situation, is it possible to have them not white or, so that?
I think that might be HDC, maybe not.
Okay.
I'm just thinking.
I'm just thinking in terms of, calming the look and sort of lowering the visual impact of the outdoor seating with these larger permanent tents. And I think I was thinking of that more in terms of the property that has withdrawn the request. So thank you.
All right. I'd like to open it up to the general public. Meg, with your assistance, please let me know if there's anybody with a hand raised.
I'm not seeing any. Quick question, who was activated for this one?
This was Stephen.
Perfect. Thank you.
Did I formally ask you, Stephen? I had it written your name next in line.
I don't think
No,
so.
but
If I hadn't, I'm sorry, but please, Stephen, if you're available, you are activated.
Yep, can you hear me?
I can, thank you.
And I'm not seeing
knew
any
you were
public
thinking of-
comments.
I knew you were thinking about me, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right, seeing nobody from the general public, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved,
So
sir.
moved. Nope, Barry.
A motion's been made by Barry and seconded by Stephen.
Yep.
Okay, roll call, Barry,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Now on to the merits. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the application with the findings and conditions that are listed off by staff in the report.
I'll second.
Okay, motion's been made by Barry, seconded by Stephen. Roll call, Barry,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. Thank you very much, Brian.
All right, thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you.
You too. All right, we are going to skip over Hither Creek. I believe that was withdrawn without prejudice, and we are moving to 1 Airport Road, I believe. Is that the first one?
Mhm.
Yes, 1 Airport Road. I believe Linda Williams is here for that. Linda?
Just give her a second. I just brought her over.
Sure.
Do that, it kicks you off entirely.
Oh,
Oh.
sorry.
Well, you're on now.
And you have trouble coming back on. It's just really weird that when it's the way this happens.
No rush. Go ahead, Linda, whenever you're
Do you
prepared.
see the other guys here? Hold on a
Yep.
second.
I just brought Brian over. Do you want me to bring David over now or wait till we get to 7?
Bring them both over because they're sort of stuck together. I wasn't sure that David Buckley, their attorney, could make it.
No, David Glowacki's here, not David Buckley.
Yeah, I know, but I also asked David Buckley to be here, but he was not sure he was going to be able to do it.
Okay.
Okay.
So with that, well, before we get going, I think I'll identify a member for the special permit. After Stephen, I believe it's Carl. Carl, you're available?
Sorry, sorry, I was muted.
That's all right. All right, you're activated, Carl. Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Linda. Sorry about. Go ahead.
I think anybody's been out there to the corner. Walter owned it. David and Brian received the property. They bought the property from the estate so they could work their commercial operation out of there. It is in a commercial zone. David's primarily landscape construction. Brian has other uses, as you saw in your addendums, that were a little bit more varied on his, because he also has a property on Tomahawk. So they are permitted uses. On David's side, on number 7, is all permitted use. But because of the amount of space that it's using, it is a MCD. I've already run it by the the water company, and they have the email, and Megan has it, and Leslie have it from the water company from Mark Willett. And I'm not sure what else to add, except that they are cleaning up the sites. They have planted a lot of trees. They have cleaned up a lot of the junk that was pushed up against the trees. They are bringing in water next week, and David could talk to that to keep the trees alive. And that's pretty much it on David's side. On Brian's side, he's leasing areas to other people that are in desperate need of commercial space. So that's pretty much it. It's across from the airport, across from Candlewood Corners, behind a commercial development of Tom Hanlon's, who'll be coming in next month or the following month. So the nature of the area is very, very mixed, but also very heavily developed already. So any questions on David's? David can speak to his operation better if you want David to weigh in here, and then Brian can weigh in on his side.
Great, thank you, Linda. I think we'll approach this one applicant at a time, even though they're both tied into it, just because there are maybe a couple of different questions. We did receive a letter. I just wanted to identify this. I don't know if the rest of the board was able to get a letter from Erica Mooney.
It just came today, so we just now saw it.
So there are definitely some concerns that she brings up. Just, in summary, the lots were originally wooded that were kind of, well, in her terms, clear cut without any permits from the planning board or approvals. There were berms made of soil and tree and shrub debris. There's dirt piles there. I have been by the lots to take a look, and I'm very familiar with the way the state that they are. So the dirt piles are double the size of the berms, and I believe that there's an area on the left side that shows that's kind of encroaching into the trees. So they're halfway up the trees. There's also issues as far as concerns for drainage infrastructure because there's no silt fencing there, or there's nothing to prevent runoff from the soil. So no liners for the catch, to catch before they go into the drainage. We are in the wellhead protection area. So we really do have to think about the specific storage drainage analysis. The storage on the site, there's a boat-related storage, motor vehicle storage, besides the exterior storage.
That's on 7. That's on 7.
Okay.
I mean, that's
so
on
that-
1. That's
well,
on 1. That's Brian's, not David's. David has one entity on his property, and that's all that's going to be there.
Okay, well, we're on 1. This is in general for both because there are vehicles, I guess, with concerns in the wellhead protection area. So is there any, as to Erica's comments, looking to urge to deny any additional waivers and impose additional conditions with the MCD special permit as far as driveway aprons and silt fencing.
Silt fencing, I can address some of it. Silt fencing, through you, Mr. Chairman, is not required. It's not a wetland. They just as soon get rid of the berms. Just so you know, the berms sort of took place before they were able to plant. So the things were pushed up. So they were bermed. They've gotten rid of a lot of the junk that was on the berms. I think the berms were put there to, in lieu of a fence, berms were put there to sort of soften the appearance before the trees went in. So, I mean, if they have to get rid of the berms, they're fine with that. As far as drainage, Mark looked at that at the water company. He's okay with it, as long as they're not doing maintenance of vehicles there. And I don't believe any of that is planned. As far as the aprons, we know we have to put aprons in. That was part of what required from you guys anyway. So they know they have to put aprons in. And the condition, I believe, in the staff report is that there be a nice demarcation between the two sides coming in from the same place, but some sort of a little cobblestone or something in between the two sides. So you know one's going right and one's going left. I believe they have a berm at the head of it to sort of separate the two sides as it is now. So it's a work in progress, which is why we wanted to come in and sort of get this all straightened out with you guys. I know there was a condition in there that the heavy equipment be located to the back of the lot on number 7 on David's. I don't see a problem with that, to rearrange that and push them to the back, to the left. She mentioned the drainage, the runoff. I think the berms go away, the runoff ceases. And I believe the drain is actually on lot 1. So something will have to be worked out there. But the rest of it, I think we're dealing with through you guys. So conditions are fine. They don't work at night. I know Erica mentioned lighting. There is no lighting. There's not anticipated to be any lighting working at night. It gets dark, we're done. We're not operating under any kind of a mobile lighting. Some of the other sites are, we're not. So it's going to be continue to be meet the dark skies and no nighttime operations. I believe those are her major sticking points besides the screening.
Okay,
It's a lot
and
of screening.
yeah, as noted, landscaping contractor by right, boat related storage by right, exterior storage, warehousing by special permit, motor vehicle parking lot by special permit, and then up to 6 storage containers.
And I believe that's on Brian's on number 1.
Okay, so as you know, just mentioning those items up for discussion, we've talked about storage containers in the past, going back a couple of years now, in different areas, from off of Bartlett Road when we discussed that to Arrowhead. So we'd love screenage if there were to be storage containers, and also compliance as far as or conforming containers all to kind of look together with a common color instead of a rainbow fleet.
Yeah,
So
talk to Brian about that when you get to number 1, but stay on number 7. Are we on 1 or 7?
yeah, we're on number 1. That's in my.
Okay, so that
notes.
is Brian's.
Yes.
And Brian is here if you want to have a conversation with Brian.
Okay, well, through you, Brian or Linda, as I just mentioned, for Brian, just mentioning the storage containers, should there be storage containers up to the 6, that we would request that they all be
Conforming
and in the same color.
Yeah.
Okay, board members, hearing the applicant, do you have any questions for either Linda or Brian? And we're on number 1 Airport Road.
I have a couple things, John. If I
Sure,
can.
go ahead, Dave.
I think at this point, I would really like to see more screening than just these trees. We've all put up with Richmond for long enough. I really think that we don't, everyone that comes to this island doesn't need to see something like this at the corner. So I'd like to see a fence. I'd also like to suggest that with a fence, that storage containers aren't stacked higher than 2 max.
No, one at a time. One at a time. I
Or
agree.
just one at a time would be better.
Yeah.
But again, fencing, we've talked about a common driveway, right? A wide common curb cut, which makes sense. Again, we're in the wellhead recharge district. So I am concerned about what runs off and what's stored on the site with its ability to leach into the soil. So I think that we might need to look at what exactly is going to be stored there. And that's it for now. Thanks.
Well, I think, Mr. Chairman, through you,
Sure.
no hazardous materials stored on site. I think it's going to work. Mark wouldn't let us do it anyway. It's prohibited in the wellhead recharge, which is why he said it's got open soil, it can drain easily. So that's why Mark wasn't concerned so long as we didn't do a vehicle maintenance on the sites.
I mean, I think that there could also be other concerning things stored there. So I just think we need to be smart about how we word this and how we go about it. I mean, we don't want, this is C-Tech, it's not the industrial. So I just don't want to see metal piled up there. I don't want to see tires piled up there, and such. So,
And that wouldn't be permittable anyway, because we're just looking at landscape contracting on one side and permitted uses and some special permit, quiet special permit uses on one.
Cam.
Let's see, Cam, your hand is raised.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I, as you know, have had several concerns about this area. I think what happened was highly unfortunate. Had we been thinking about it, I think that a maybe 25 to 30 foot retention of the natural growth and tree situation that was there would have been most advisable. I think it's looking more like the CI than C-Tech. And I'm a little concerned about that. Under C-Tech, a lot of the by right things are related to businesses with buildings, and this isn't going to have any, which is all right. They're going to utilize storage containers and that kind of placement, but it just currently looks a lot like the CI district. And as I have said at the outset, when I had referenced this property area, this is, coming into and going out of the airport, which is very public. It is not in some back area. And I think it's unfortunate that the property owners didn't have the foresight to leave an existing treed, shrubbed area. Okay, that said, I'm concerned about the trees that are currently planted on the berm there. That berm is rather high. I see a lot of water runoff and therefore a large demand for water by the trees to survive. Probably should have had a larger or wider, I should say, berm for water retention. I'm a little concerned about storage of motor vehicles of any sort. I mean, you never know when one has a leak, or, maybe it should be on, something with a drain, concrete platform with a drain. I know that seems probably excessive, though I know when we were looking at having material storage out on Marble Way, I believe there was reference to sort of seepage from, mulch and other materials that are stored there. So I sort of have that concern as the cross reference. I'd like to see none of the storage containers to be more than 1 high. As I've said in the past, I think the fencing around a storage container or the property housing them should be at least a minimum of the height of the storage container. And perhaps if they were not at the street view, so perhaps given what has already occurred, if there could be some sensitivity to the aesthetic from the roadside, that would be much appreciated, I'm sure. And I also wanted to reference that I did not see a letter from Erica, so I apologize from that, but there was something from Mr. Carberg, and that noting that the airport commission schedule was not going to meet until tomorrow. So they really didn't know if they had more to comment about the development or direction of development of this property. And so I don't know if there's something that is allowed for decision to allow them post public hearing to say something or not. So maybe I would recommend that the board consider delaying action until we have input from the airport's meeting, just as a suggestion. Sorry to take up so much of your time, but I appreciate your patience. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Dave, did you have your hand up, or is that continued from last time? It's down now. Okay. Brian McLaughlin, welcome. I see your hand raised.
You're on mute, Brian. You're on mute.
I got you.
There you go.
You think I know how to do this by now?
I know that. You on mute? No.
Hi, everybody. So I just want to address a couple of these things. The trees that we picked were obviously because they grow the fastest. We took all these things into consideration and moved it off the property line so that once they're maintained, they can maintain a line of sight. We kept them off the corner, even though if the corner kind of sweeps across my property, we kept it off that to keep the line of sight there perfect. As far as the Old South Road side of that berm, that's not even actually a berm. We just sort of flattened what was there and tried to put that, put those trees up so that there wasn't a berm. I realize there's a concern about the runoff into the drain, which we're open to getting rid of that berm altogether. I just was trying to put something there that was immediate and address whatever concerns that were in the community already. And if, we'll get some water on those trees and they start growing, then it's going to look beautiful over there instead of looking like an industrial area. So it just takes time, unfortunately. So I just wanted to express that I am open to, prettying it up, and I'm on my side, at least I can't speak for Dave, but sort of screen it more so as you drive by, you're not looking in as much, with a little more mature trees and things like that. I am kind of an expert in the field of shipping containers and screening at this point by accident. So any of those concerns, I know they have to all be the same color and we have to hide them as best as possible. And I just wanted to just sort of reiterate that I'm open to, if the trees were mature today, it would look beautiful. If we can do something in the meantime to help it, then I'm open to all those things. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Brian. Board.
John, just real quick.
Go ahead, Nat.
Sorry, I don't have the little hand thing on my iPad. So, Brian, I appreciate your comments. And unfortunately, when you strip the natural vegetation away right up to the edge, it's fluffy and soft, and water makes finds its way, kind of like a beach. So, I mean, I don't want you to get rid of the berm because the berm is keeping the water in your property. You know, so there's a catch-22 with the berm. I think, you know, with that rain we had the other day, which is a very unusual amount of rain in such a short amount of time, I think you probably found all the spots that need addressing just by that. And, you know, that need to be, you know, looked at as far as water. I mean, the problem with stuff like this is, you know, as you know, after town meeting, you know, the planning board is the problem with everything on Nantucket. So I think that that's pretty, you know, we get blamed for a lot of things, and this is one of them. So we encouraged the zoning change here because it was all in R20, and look what happened. I mean, it's kind of a like I understand exactly what needs to happen here as far as the new vegetation takes time to grow, but we got to do something to keep it from, you know, washing into the Old South and Airport Road, and, you know, think about, you know, what it's going to look like down the road. So I don't necessarily think I don't know what to say about a fence. That's not free. That's a lot of money. I don't know if it would be temporary. I don't know if that makes any sense. I don't want to make that a condition without having a further discussion for that. And fences blow down as well. And so that's not there's no lee there. Well, a little bit, but not much when it's coming from the south. So I don't have a perfect answer, except that we need to really do the best we can to get the horse back in the barn on the perimeter of this entire lot, whether it doesn't matter if it's 7 or 1. So that would be that's my concern. And I know it's going to look a lot better later, but at the moment it doesn't. And there's nothing we can really do now about that, except, you know, condition things and kind of follow this along as time goes on, and come up with the best process we can.
Mr. Chairman, would it make any difference if we shot the berms with grass, planted the berms themselves, so that would keep the dirt in place and also give it a little bit more of a green belt?
I was thinking about, what about something that's, you know, artificial, like that stuff they use on the bluff, Linda? I don't know what that's called. I kind of forgot the name of that stuff.
You're talking about the riprap where they plant in between it? That doesn't need that. You just need to shoot the grass.
I've seen some really interesting new stuff that comes now. It's like this plastic stuff with holes in it, holds the water and lets the grass grow at the same time. And there's all sorts of new things now. I'm not, you know, I don't want to, you know, I'm not an engineer, but there's definitely some answers to that until things start growing. I just don't know exactly what to recommend. So
yeah. Plant the berm and keep the dirt in place.
Definitely want to keep that fluffy soil from just washing down into the Old South side, into the Airport Road side.
Yeah.
Only the other.
If I may, there's a couple of requests for the grant waivers, and besides the storm drainage analysis and traffic study, landscape plan, lighting plan, hours of operation, and inclusionary housing. So what above that, I see the uses that are proposed, and for special permit, one of them that stands out is motor vehicle parking lot and by special permit. So what complicates that is there's going to be 5 separate leased areas just on this one parcel here, number 1. So I guess what I'm looking for is kind of a number, maybe Brian, if you have an idea, what are you looking for? Because before we would consider that as a special permit with the motor vehicle parking, how many were you looking? Is there going to be 6 per lot times 5 is 30 cars or vehicles there? Because you can see my cautionary concern is, 5 times the amount that we would consider or waive or give a special permit for. They could really add up if we're not specific about it.
Well, I'll give you an example. We were approached by a business that's in the pit, a Coffin's Pit. And because of the size of his building and the type of business that he runs, he's getting a lot of flack from everybody else in the pit about people parking on the street, on his property, but parallel on the street. So what he asked is that maybe we could park they're close enough where he could park some of his, his vans or one of his trucks or some of the employees' cars there. So it's not a free for all. It's basically quote unquote overflow parking for him. And he's willing to lease that space just to get him. And it's not used year round. He closes in like November, doesn't really open again until April, if not May. And so it'd be pretty much just there. It's not going to be a car rental storage from the airport, like overflow parking from the airport, overflow parking for business guys. That's the kind of thing that we were asked to include, so he could get some just overflow and get his people off his property, off the street in Arrowhead.
Right.
So it's not-
I understand that, Linda, and I'm just trying to kind of paint a picture, because if that person is looking for overflow parking while he's doing maintenance on vehicles or something like that, so they're not parking on the street, I see the logic in that, but it's kind of a two-parter, because if we look at the motor vehicle parking by special permit, and then we look at 5 and maybe 2 of the lots would be kind of used for that, then we look at what you're requesting for a waiver to grant a waiver for storm drainage analysis. And we don't know the condition of the cars that are being parked there. Are they leaking oil, waiting for repair? And then the numbers, if you're looking at 5 or 10 or 20, based on how many separate leases of the 5 lots, it just adds concern for what are we building up, and then what are we granting as waivers, so that it kind of falls through the cracks. And next thing you know, we're looking at an environmental concern because we granted waivers and didn't have a specific number designated to the lots. And
I understand it's not the auto repair. It's
Right.
the tent. It's Andy Grennan. So there's no repair vehicles. These are operating vehicles.
Okay.
So it's not that other business or
Right.
the blown in insulation business or one of the other ones on that side. It's just Andy Grennan can't have his trucks and stuff parked and his cars parked on the street over there. So they don't have enough room, I guess, for those guys to park.
Well, I'm not criticizing the idea. I think it makes sense. I'm asking the questions for people that are going to eventually in the future ask the questions. What number did we grant or allow by special permit, and with the waivers to not do any kind of a storm drain analysis? If something ever happened, we'd have to answer to that. And I'm just trying to ask the question beforehand. So with that, I see Carl's hand raised. Maybe you'd like to add something, Carl.
Yeah, I just had a couple of comments listening to folks speak here. Having driven by the properties on numerous occasions, it's my understanding that the first driveway would be fixed up, and then there'll be a shared driveway on the property line between 1 and 7. Is that correct, Linda?
I believe we talked about having one driveway, not 2 curb cuts, one driveway that is sufficient. Double wide, so that you would enter and it would be in safe view, 25 feet away from the minimum corner to make it safe. And then that one driveway would come to, as you enter it in, exit to the left for the number 7, exit to the right for the number 1. And it would have an apron, conditioned with the HDC.
Right. So that to me is a really good idea, because if you had two driveways, you'd have 2 visual tunnels to look into the properties and the materials in the properties. And if you only have 1, that's fine. I would be concerned about drainage a little bit. I think the aprons could stay, and the fast growing trees that have been planted make a lot of sense to me. I think they're really good looking, and I would not be in favor of a fence on these properties. I think it would be aesthetically, it wouldn't be very good to have a huge fence wrapping around And if the storage areas are reasonably adhered to, I think that's fine. Landscaping materials and machinery and storage containers. I would like to see the storage containers of one level and not doubled up. But I am pretty much against a fence. I think it would look kind of like a prison wall if there was a fence all the way around. So those are basically my comments. I'm pretty comfortable with how the drawings showed things stored here and stored there. So
Okay.
that's it.
Thank you, Carl. Brian, your hand's raised.
Well, I mean, he covered a lot of that, but the as far as vehicle storage and the things that we put on there, I just feel like the commercial aspect of Nantucket has been squeezed. I think everybody knows that, and we're trying. The whole purpose of changing the zoning was to find a place for it. So to leave it a little open to different types of businesses without really pigeonholing only into the certain landscaper can rent there was the intent of casting a little wider net. There is no unregistered vehicle storage or any of that stuff that on my plan at this time of any kind. There's no metal storage or any of the things that were of concern. I just think that it's as far as this goes, there's a need for this, and it's been squeezed out of every other type of zoning, and that's sort of the idea. So like if we come up with something that everybody likes, then it could be a real home run and kind of set the example for how to go forward with this in the future. So thanks.
Thank you. I think without seeing any hands, I'd like to open it up to the general public.
I think Steven's had his hand up for a while. I'm looking at the top line here.
Nope. Stephen, if you do, I apologize. I'm going through it. There you go. All right, Stephen, if your hand is up, please.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I just learned how to lower my hand on a tablet, raise my hand and lower it. I think, the unfortunate reality is this location is the intersection of two realities. One is everyday life on Nantucket, and the other is the kind of a gateway to our community. I'm not going to repeat some of the comments, but I think I would suggest with some certainty the HDC will not be allowing a fence along the length of either roadway here. Secondly, the idea of perhaps supplementing the berm with some indigenous materials, bayberry, other types of materials that will grow in, fill in, and look like they've always been there, will create that natural buffer that I think Campbell mentioned, but without having to utilize 20 or 30 feet of the depth of the property. A 10-foot berm, 3 feet high, planted out with some cedars to supplement existing plant material, understanding that the applicants put, not an insubstantial amount into the plant materials that are there, would be useful for the long-term success. I think the plant materials that are there are going to grow very rapidly. And when I say think, I mean, I know from experience. And then with respect to the layout and use of the site itself, it seems to me that on its face, which I think is what we take these things at, and then we condition them appropriately, is that the landscaping uses are outlined, they're enumerated both within text and with respect to the parking and the storage material areas. I think I would suggest that if I were activated, which I know it won't be on this one, that these are appropriate subject to conditions such as, the lighting was brought up, there wouldn't be any lighting. The other is mulch or compost materials would need to come back under a separate permit or a minor modification of the permit, because we know that that can be a contentious topic. But subject to appropriate screening and restricting the uses to those that are enumerated in the plan, and it seems appropriate to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. All right, I will open it up to the general public for comment. Meg, if you see anybody's hand raised or out there, please identify.
Emily Molden.
Oh, geez.
Hi, Emily. Whenever you're ready.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Emily Molden for the Nantucket Land Council. I did have a few concerns given the location of these properties and the proposed uses. There has been some discussion already about the Wellhead Protection District. I just wanted to add, in addition to hazardous materials, which are obviously prohibited and there's not an intention of having them here anyway, that there are some provisions in the bylaw around the storage of commercial fertilizers as well. And I didn't see that specifically addressed in the application. I know that it's something that could be conditioned, and I think it would be important to incorporate some language around the storage of those materials as well. I also think that the planning board should generally have a policy of receiving the water quality certification or compliance letter before closing the public hearing and issuing a permit. But relative to that, I think in this case, it is extremely important to get additional information on stormwater management and drainage design prior to closing the hearing and issuing a permit. I think the waiver in this case to waive site plan review is not appropriate. I think this is the type of location where it absolutely should be required if it's waived here. I just don't think that that's a great precedent for areas in the Wellhead District with these types of uses. So I think that the discussion has already taken place around screening. I would certainly support Mr. Welch's suggestions around native vegetation being used if the berms remain in place to help to create some of that buffer. But otherwise, I definitely would advocate for the board to keep this open for additional information. The plans that were provided I don't think they had any elevations on them. So just as far as grading, again, going into the stormwater and drainage analysis, I think would be helpful to see and to incorporate as well. So I hope those can be provided. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily.
If you will, Mr. Chairman, there is no grading. It's flat. Number one. Number two, it was the email from Mark Willett was submitted before. We've talked about the berms, and that seems like a great idea since we already have the berms, just to plant the berms with low vegetation, things that'll grow in quickly. So I think we've dealt with that. And if Mark is comfortable with it, then we're comfortable with it. And I don't foresee any hazardous materials, including certain fertilizers, being brought to the site. That would be more of a David question on number 7, since his entire business is landscape construction. And obviously aggregate, there's spaces on his plan for aggregate. So I think that would be a David discussion when we get to 7.
Thank you, Linda. I think, as Brian mentioned, commercial real estate, and I've been looking at it for many years, a lot of people are being squeezed out. I think unfortunately, it's been noted a couple of times, this particular area is sort of the gateway, the second gateway to the island. It used to be where the airport was the big place, and now the steamship and fast boat and the Highline is the sort of the gateway. But there's still a lot of traffic going out there, and this is one of the things that you see on a regular basis. So anything that we do or determine or the decisions really should be well thought out and not just quickly hashed out. They're asking for waivers, so we have to be a little cautious of the waivers that we're granting. And one of the things, obviously there's no intention to put any hazardous material as prohibited, but we should make note, as Emily said, of certain things for commercial fertilizer. And Emily does make a good point. If we're going to grant waivers in this particular area in the Wellhead District, where are we going to be safe? So we have to be very cautious of what waivers that we're going to be granting. If we're going to be issuing special permits for the motor vehicle storage, I think we need to kind of get a determination, although I get the scenario and what the applicant is trying to do, and I don't have an issue with it. I think we just have to kind of not make it a free-for-all Wild West where you can eventually have 100 cars there, 20 to each parking place of the 5 leased areas. So because it does potentially bring about environmental impacts that we have to be leery of, whether they're registered and in great condition or not. Things happen to good cars and trucks. So, I appreciate a lot of the thoughts, and we're still open. I just wanted to make some comments as we're going through to kind of surmise some of the things as people might be tuning in. So I'd still like to hear from anybody in the general audience. If their hand is raised, Meg, just let me know if there's anybody out there.
There's no one else in the audience with their hand raised.
Okay. I'm not fully confident that we should plan on closing the public hearing. I think it was addressed also with a meeting that's going to be scheduled before we do anything to make a determination. I think we have a lot of information go on, and I actually have some more questions. Again, in principle, I'm not opposed to this application. I think there's a need, and there's not too many places for this. However, I do want to take this very cautiously because besides being a gateway, it does have environmental impacts on our wellhead district. So unless there's new material for this particular application, go ahead, Barry. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now, I know Dave has got his hand raised too, so I might defer to him for a minute, and then if you'll come back to me, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, Dave.
Yeah, I appreciate Steve's comments about some buffer or just. I mean, listen, I think we just need to be careful as a board here. We're going to see multiple more applications in this area for CTEC property next time around. So I'm really hesitant to issue waivers here on anything they're asking for, just because we've got 2 more lots right behind them that are going to come up before us next month. And I don't want to set a precedent that's going to get us in trouble because, as you said, John, it's the Wellhead Protection District. I think that visually it's really upsetting what's going on here. It makes us as a board look bad. And I think we just really need to get this right here, because again, we're going to have 2 more lots with Fair City or whatever that LLC is coming behind them, not knowing exactly what they're doing, but they're CTEC as well. So I just think we need to be really careful the decisions we make on these applications as they may apply to the next ones that we see. Thank you.
I'll be bringing that in next month. Same usage actually. So.
Go ahead,
Barry.
Barry.
Back, John, would coming back with a planting plan for the berms be helpful for next month?
It definitely wouldn't hurt. That would obviously be careful to see a more detailed plan. And as far as the lighting, I know you look for a waiver of that because the airport is right around the corner. I think the airport commission might have some concerns about the lighting. So I really wouldn't want to waive any kind of lighting plan. I think obviously with low lights and dark skies and things like that, that you would you want to adhere to the concerns of the airport. But because there are runways right around the corner, I think it's important not to waive a lighting plan.
Well, we're waiving the lighting plan because we don't have any lights.
Well, that's good.
I can't give you a plan. I can't give you a plan if there are no lights, period.
Okay.
And we're well aware that the airport, one of the entrances on certain types of weather days comes right over the top of it. We're well aware of that. So there's no lights. We're not planning any lights right now. There's no lights, which is why you have no light plan, which is why we asked for the waiver, and we asked for the waiver of the traffic study because it's kind of ridiculous. So those are the 2 big things. Site plan review, you guys.
That's good. Because I guess without a lighting plan, we'd probably want language to state that there will not be the lighting in there, because any future lighting would have to come before us again.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's why we asked for a lighting waiver, so we don't have to give you one because we don't have one.
Right. Okay. Board members, any other comments? Barry?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one thing. This definitely sounds like it's going to be continued, which is fine. I think there's a fair amount of dynamics here, and as Dave Iverson has said, it's not just this we're going to be looking at. There's going to be other properties coming up, which again, this is a good area for CTEC. Make no mistake about it, given some of what's within the general vicinity. It's just the wellhead does complicate things a bit. So through you to staff, both Megan and Leslie, this isn't something that needs to be answered today, but it may need to be sounded out a bit further about the idea of putting test wells out there that could have some type of monitoring schedule. Given that we're not really sure what is going to go on with the site in terms of how many boats are going to be out there, how many cars are going to be out there. But again, a number of you expressed concerns with that. That might be an intermediate solution to satisfy that. We're keeping an eye on things. I know we've done that with other properties before, and maybe with doing, routine, putting some test wells out there that would make sense. Coordinate that with Mark Willett and find some type of schedule to address as well too. Just so if something does come up, great, we got it. If nothing comes up, there's the validation for it at this point. So just to throw that onto the radar, but that definitely is worthy of a little bit more discussion and making some good sense out of it. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Plus, Mr. Chairman, I believe we're waiting for Ed Pesci. We haven't had, Megan may know more what's going on with that, but I don't think we've heard from Ed Pesci yet. And I know we were waiting for Ed, so if Megan can address that.
Sure. Meg, your hand is raised also. Go ahead.
We have heard from Ed, and that email was included in the packet, I believe.
Yeah, that's right there.
But what I was raising my hand for was actually, we have another member of the public in attendance that would like to speak. If we're still taking public comment.
Sure.
Erica.
Ed Pesci's letter, Megan, I haven't seen it.
It's in the packet.
You were on the email, but I'll send it to you again.
Okay. Erica, your hand is raised. Welcome. How are you?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, and thank you for your letter. I think I tried to address as many as I could, but obviously you have the floor, so please, whenever you're ready.
Thanks, John. I did just want to say I'm sorry to submit the letter so late. And I do appreciate you addressing the letter and the points that I made, and I'm sorry that it didn't make it to the associate members. I should have copied them on it. I totally get, in my opening paragraph stated that I get that the commercial and industrial component of Nantucket has been squeezed out. My family used to own a small landscaping business in Sconset. We were right in the middle of the residential district. We were grandfathered. And when that business moved, it would never have been able to go there again. That being said, with landscaping, you used to pull up to my Gramps shop and all you could smell was gas and oil. So
not all the time, Erica.
Nat, you work there, you know it.
I know, not all the time. Come on.
But my point is, it's not like I'm thinking there's going to be an industrial spill, but if you're greasing your hedge clippers or you're putting oil in your lawnmower, it's really hard not to have little spills. And not to say that they are going to add up into something huge, but I know that we've just spent money with a new drainage infrastructure on that corner. I'm really concerned, especially with the wellhead recharge. I don't want to reiterate all my points in my letter, but what's happening now could change in the future. And I'm really pleased to hear when Linda said, we're asking for a waiver because there is none. And when John, you said, okay, well then if you were going to have lighting in the future, you need to come back. I think that language needs to be clear in terms of the waivers they're requesting if they're not doing it at this time. Because things change, businesses grow and they evolve, and there might be somebody who wants a lease that wants it to work a little later at night and all of a sudden needs lighting. And I get that, but just to make sure that, people need to come back if any kind of waivers are granted now to have those uses be allowed in the future. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Erica. Okay.
I just
go ahead.
got a couple more things, John.
Sure.
Real quick, John, sorry. Leslie's on. I want to ask Leslie a question regarding just a general question about what a property owner has a right to do without a permit. All right, real quick. Stripping land, because we have been faced with a lot of questions about this as board members and as just the typical Nantucket, I mean, you can blame us for squeezing the commercial. I mean, you can blame us for just about anything, okay? So that's why I want to get this out while we're talking about it. So Leslie, can I just ask you, what can a property owner do by right, without a permit, stripping land? Can they just strip right to the setback line or to the property line?
So we do not have a local excavation bylaw. So provided that there's not, wetlands where you need to go to the Concom, you can strip your land, you can clear it, you can grade it. You can't do something that, has a negative runoff onto a neighbor's property. That's not a local regulation, but it's something that you can do. If there are endangered species involved, you may have to go to MUSA or get some other state level permitting, but locally we do not have regulations generally that govern excavation.
Okay, because my point for bringing this up is simple, that if there was a 10-foot, I'm just saying 10 feet, could have been 5 feet, could have been 7, whatever, of the natural forest material that was there. And if everything was done on the inside of that until a future real, because it is hard, Eric is right, things change. Look at how much the coffin pit has changed. A lot, okay? And that's a big hole in the ground, all right? It looks a lot better than it did when it was a hole in the ground. Well, this was a natural piece of land that looked the same since the glacier stopped Nantucket. So all of a sudden it's not the same. And that's why the focus is on this. And we need to make sure that we, don't look like we've, have something that we need to look at. Like you just said, if we don't have any regulation to strip land completely stripped right to every inch, that's something we need to talk about at a future time, number one. Now that there's no land left, we should be talking about that. Secondly, the other question was, what is the plan, Linda? I don't know if you can answer this or not, on the Nobody Away or Nobody Ave, whatever the little hook, with the residential side. What is the plan on that side? That's a lot different than the street side. And nobody.
Are you talking about David's lot at 7? He's the one that's next to it. One is not next to it.
Okay, all right. I'll wait for that. I'll wait for that. Basically identical public hearing. Okay, got it.
Well, it's different because he only has one use, but
yeah,
there's and it's allowed use. But there is that paper road in between that was taken at town meeting. The selectmen have the right to take that paper road between these lots and Tommy Hanlon's lots and the backside of the guys on Nobody Away. And they were given permission at town meeting to take them and then convey them to the abutters. So it could very well go away, but right now there is a 10-foot buffer automatically between the two, this lot at 7, Tommy Hanlon's back lot, and the backside of those Nobody Away guys. And they knew what was happening on these lots, and we didn't get any comments from those guys.
Right. Okay, I didn't realize that. So that's a separate question, but it's still my general point. So, all right. And the next thing, I guess, would be keeping the public hearing open, but what kind of direction can we give Leslie, as far as like, is there going to be a site review with maybe some sort of a meeting with Ed, with them, maybe, possibly? I think that would be a smart move to do that.
I just read Ed's letter. I just read Ed's letter too, and so we have to address what Ed brought up as well.
Well, I think the applicant should meet with Ed and keep the hearing open and come up with some suggestions, maybe beyond what we've already discussed, is for the next hearing. But I don't want that to slow down any progress either. I'm just saying, I think that would be the next logical step.
Yep. Thank you, Nat.
All right.
Yeah, there's been a lot of thoughts, opinions a lot of information to go on. So I think Ed Pesci would be a nice little addition to comments, but obviously it was something that we weren't going to close out in the first. There's just too many unanswered questions, but I think there's a lot of information given and good material. So they'd have a good idea of what to expect when they meet with Ed and a relatively detailed site plan of what we're looking for. Cam, I see your hand raised. Or is that just up, or are you adding additional comment?
Well, I just had one or two, one question really. When I was reading through Mr. Pesci's letter, and it struck me that there's going to be delivery trucks here, and I'm just wondering about like what kind of size are we expecting for that? Is it like 53-foot tractor trailer? And if so, is the turning radius at the airport road corner going to be sufficient? So that one doesn't start, as those big trucks do, they just start breaking down the corner as they can't fully turn. And then I guess I had another one as you're talking about other properties and that paper road that just got taken. I was sort of wondering if it wasn't going to be more appropriate for all of these properties to try and get access from Old South Road instead of Airport Road. Old South seems to be a bit wider and allow for a greater accommodation for the types of vehicles that are going to try and come and go from here. And the way the drive is currently in fair proximity to the corner of the Airport Road, where we really already do have some high use concerns in the summer, I would say. So I was just sort of throwing that out there and wondering about this delivery truck size.
Cam,
These are the only two lots that have frontage on there. Tommy Hanlon's lot, they have their own road that comes in off of Old South Road that have nothing whatsoever to do with us. As far as the types of trucks coming in, that would be more of a David Glowacki lot 7 Airport Road question.
And I will comment just because I've had experience from owning a trucking company. The Cam, in reference to the corner of Old South Road and Airport Road, where we have the split lane there, tractor trailers generally, as they would in Boston and New York City, they take a wider turn. They go actually in the left lane. They wait till it's clear with their rear view mirrors before making the right and make a wider swing. They wouldn't necessarily pull in that right-hand lane and try and make a turn there. But the tractor trailers get along on the island fine in tougher places, like Five Corners, or not Five Corners, over by the high school. They make allowances for that. They just obviously are cautious about their swing. So that's not necessarily a concern as far as putting a tractor trailer on one of those, turning on that road and making going into the lot.
Okay, thank you, John. I do understand how they get around, but I also, see the way that last set of tires really does come right over the sidewalks and stuff, but that's okay. I was just looking at the, in terms of Linda's comment, I was looking at the aerial vision that was provided, and it seemed like there was a dirt road that probably at one time did go through that whole piece of property there.
No,
Google App Geo.
doesn't matter. There's no road through this property.
Well, seeing no hands raised, I would at this time think that we would entertain a motion to continue. And I would like to state that we are going to treat number 7 as a separate conversation. So we would close out 1 and then open up discussion on the second one, because at any given time we could close out one end, and we didn't have to group them together, even though a lot of the concerns and questions that we have are obviously related. Barry?
Yeah, so I'll make a motion to continue this till our next meeting in June.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made to continue by Barry, seconded by Nat. Roll call, Barry,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
and I think I had Carl activated for this.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you, Brian, and thank you, Linda.
But I'm
And-
still here.
Great. Next up, 7 Airport Road. Same kind of discussion. Linda representing, and also Dave Glowacki. Welcome, Dave, if we haven't formally welcomed you in the first one. So
I think you guys pretty much got the gist of what's going on 7, but it's just a single entity, not multiple entities, and it's related all to David's landscape construction, excavating, which a lot of you guys are familiar with that type of work, aggregate storage, the trucks and the front end loaders, the bobcats, things like that are associated with his business, but it's all one entity, one business. And he's also planted the trees, and David's the one bringing in the water next week from the water company to service the trees that have been planted around both perimeters. And I think pretty much the same stuff. And Mark Willett also said that it was okay with him so long as there's no maintenance of the vehicles there. And I believe probably a lot of the questions related to the actual nature of the business would be better directed towards David, who is here.
okay, before I allow David to speak, I just would like to check with Leslie. I think on this application, I'd like to keep Carl on board as a special permit for a member, since the two are closely related, number 1 and number 7. So the discussions that we had and he commented on, I think it would be beneficial if he's there. That's okay, Leslie?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Great. All right, Carl, welcome back. You are activated again for number 7 Airport
Okay.
Road. Thank you.
Okay.
David, welcome. You have the floor if you'd like to add some questions or comments or just introduce yourself. And that's David Glowacki, sorry.
David, you're muted still. There you go.
I just wanted to address only a couple things, really. Linda's done a good job answering things so far, and everybody's comments have kind of played right into everything that's going on. But as far as the trucking that was addressed just a minute ago that Cam was asking about and going around the corner, there's no really anticipation of any 18-wheelers coming and going. If it is, it would be very rare. The sites, neither site, 1 or 7, really has the space for one of those to get in and out of. So it's not really conducive to having trucks that size coming in and out. But the reason for the wide opening as far as us is for my trucks and trailers, so that we don't have the trailers tracking off onto the sides of the road at the entrance of the properties. So that's why we're trying to keep a double wide entrance and have, just a median type thing that's at grade in between, so that we can track into the properties properly.
Great.
That's about it.
And David, to add to that, I think the planning staff and myself included would prefer the one access, because as people mentioned, the line of sight that you see would be lessened to have one entrance and then split down the middle with maybe a buffer there, than to have 2 curb cuts where it would be a tunnel to see the storage and et cetera. So if you can limit it to 1 and it's a safe place away from the turn, I think that's preferred by the planning staff.
And if I could just add one more thing, there was a concern I heard a little while ago about, and Linda said, defer to me on it, was about the fertilizers and stuff, and none of that is anything I'm planning on ever doing. It's, pretty much just aggregates, sand, maybe some shells or something like that, but nothing that has any fertilizer, or I'm not planning on taking in compost, stuff like that.
Okay, so I think any other future consideration would go before a special permit. And as you mentioned, compost, that would definitely be something. We've had issues with storage facilities and the smell that comes from that. Grass clippings and things like that have been brought up in the past where just stockpile and smells have been without proper disposal of after sitting for a week or two. So anything like that, we'd entertain at a future time with any other permit coming for the board.
And there is a big pile of topsoil that's on that property that is almost all from material that was on the property when I acquired it. So I do have a screener there, but it's so that I can get rid of that by selling it instead of having to pay to get rid of it.
Great.
So that's my intention with that.
Thank you, David. Board members, or actually Leslie, your hand is raised.
Right. Thank you. And I have two comments, and maybe they were addressed before and I missed it, but for both of the properties, 1 and 7, I think you all need to have a condition about some sort of sedimentation control. You know, on a windy day, the site's now all dirt, and you know, there's debris blowing around on, you know, it's hard, I think, for people that enjoy the bike path and the park that are right across the street when dirt's blowing around everywhere. So that's number 1. And then for this particular one, I think you all should consider some extra screening, maybe a wider buffer between this commercial C-Tech property and the R10L residential properties to the south. Because those are, you know, residentially developed, they've been there. And then this is a pretty intense commercial use coming in right next door.
Thank you. Other board members, comments, questions, or are we opening up to the general public? I know a lot of it is being redundant from our previous discussion.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, seeing none. Meg, if there's any new comments from anybody in the general public?
See Emily with her hand up.
Hi, Emily. Welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Emily Molden again, just simply echoing my previous concerns from the last application. Thank you.
Thank you.
So can I just make one?
Go ahead, Matt.
I guess it's just a simple, sort of redundant but important. That single driveway access is probably the best part of all of this that we can focus on. And I just want to make sure that that is, you know, really focused on being right with water, with the height of it so that the water stays on the inside, etc. The width, making sure it's flat enough, because there will be bigger trucks and there should be bigger trucks. I mean, it shouldn't not work. You know what I mean? At some point in time, you know, so we definitely want to make sure that that is done as good as it possibly can be. Other things are gonna be, you know, evolving, okay, and changing, but that one thing is really a good positive thing. So I just want to make that note for that. And then as for Linda said about the abutters and the paper road, I didn't realize there was a paper road involved in this. So disregard that comment. I just didn't realize that. So thank you.
Thank you, Nat. Cam?
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. I'm just wondering to the applicant. So I'm assuming this equipment is like big trucks and things. I think I've seen you about. And I'm just wondering whether where you do work on the equipment. And I sort of wonder that about the other one where they say, you know, the head of the water company is fine as long as you don't do any work on your equipment here. And then I sort of wonder, well, if not here, where? Is there some place that allows for?
I'll let the applicant address the question. So Linda or David, if you have an answer, or if you'd like to comment.
I think that's a David question, but remember the family still owns Rainbow Motors.
Can you hear me?
Yes, David, go ahead.
Okay, please do not associate me with that part of the Rainbow Motors. That is a disaster up there. I try to at least have everything parked neat and organized the best I can, and I think that it looks way better than anything the rest of my family, other than Brian, is doing. Anyway, I have the email from Mark in front of me, and it says, as long as no major repairs and mechanical work is done in the space. So sometimes there's something that breaks and you have to fix it. Sometimes that happens on the road. So as of right now, I do have another rental commercial space that I'm still in because it has a small shop. But eventually I'll be hopefully coming back to you guys and trying to put up a shop. It's just nothing, in the immediate future. So that's pretty much my answer to that question.
Okay, super. Thank you so much, David.
Thank you, David.
That's
Meg, anybody from the general public?
No.
Again, a lot of these questions
Oh, hold
were.
on. Sorry,
Yeah.
yes, sorry. Erica Mooney has her hand up.
Go ahead, Erica. Welcome back.
Hi, thank you. I was at the Stop and Shop when you guys started this meeting, and I took a drive around while I was listening to it before I joined. And I did drive by Toscana, and I noticed that their aggregate area off of Arrowhead is surrounded by steel sheeting, not necessarily the most attractive thing. There is a berm, a vegetated berm in front of it, so you kind of see mostly the vegetative berm, but you don't necessarily see the large piles of aggregate. I know Miles Reese has the same thing, and I know, various members and Stephen Welch spoke against having any kind of fencing around it, but it's interesting to me that other excavation companies do have kind of better screening. And I just wanted to, I guess, point that out.
We're working on it.
Great. Thank you, Erica. As I was saying, I think a lot of the questions concerned and comments from the first application at one airport, even though this is considered a separate application and not looking for as many things, just the landscaping, contracting, and the exterior storage, a lot of them feed off of one another for the two lots. And I'm happy to see that David is complimentary of Brian and they're working together. So it helps with this, both applications. When we look at them separately, it definitely helps that they're in, on the same page with each other. So unless the board has new comments or questions or something they need clarification with, I think we are headed in the right direction. We have a lot of information go on. And I think having the applicants speak to Ed Pesci and his comments and concerns will answer a lot of ours as well. And then I think we can take this up at the next meeting and have a better, clearer picture of what we expect and what the applicants should expect. And if anyone has anything to say, I'd like
Make a motion to continue.
That's what I was hoping you'd say. So motion's been made to continue by Dave and seconded by Barry. I'll roll call. Dave.
Aye.
Barry.
Aye.
Nat.
Aye.
Carl.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. David, thank you very much. And Linda, thank you very much. And we look forward to seeing you next month.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay. That being said, I think we're on public comment. Any public comment out there? No.
I'm seeing none.
Other business, we have our next meeting on June 13th. And Meg, I trust that the dates that we had mentioned for action deadlines will be taken care of from the various dwellings, et cetera, that we discussed. So I guess our next meeting, June 13th, 4 o'clock via Zoom. Entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Barry to adjourn, seconded by Nat. Roll call. Barry.
Aye.
Nat.
Aye.
Dave.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Good night.
Thank you, staff.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Thank
Yeah.
you. We go.
Good night.
Night.